Hey, Jose.
Hello, Craig. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
Just reading through your epic. Hey, Fabian.
Hello, how's it going?
Good.
I checked out the comments from earlier in the morning, and it seems like there is, yeah, I think there's things happening, which is good.
You're
Hello. Yorick, you worried me yesterday with your tumbleweed. Oh, can you not hear me?
I think you can hear, you just can't.
Yeah,
say.
I
There
could.
it is.
My microphone was muting itself.
Ah. No,
No,
said
it
you,
was just
yeah.
a little joke because for like 2 days there's like very little going on in Slack.
Yes. Yeah, you know me. You know, my humor threshold is obviously very high. Everybody needs to explain things to me. Otherwise, I'm just like, what's happening?
It's a German thing, right? They just don't get humor.
It has to do with our language. You know, there's no ambiguity in saying something in German that limits our ability to understand humor.
All right, we're at time, overtime. I didn't have a lot. I figured I'd share the blank check proposal for folks that haven't seen it yet, which is probably just Jose and Yorick at this point in time for folks that are in the meeting. So the request, and I can share my screen so we're all looking at the same thing. The request from Eric, the original request that was communicated to us was, what can we do to bring the timeline into October? That request has been revised to say, what can we do to bring the timeline in? And he asked for a blank check proposal, meaning without any limitations on people, staffing, anything like that. How could we bring the timeline in? So the approach I took in this case was just to lay out the work, the known things that we're working on, put them in a timeline and bring them forward again without restriction of thinking like, oh, okay, well, there's only one Jose, so he can't really do multiple things at once. So removing that restriction and just focusing on the work. I've gotten some feedback from a few folks. I think, Fabian, you've seen this. I don't know if you've commented on this at all. Dylan and Tong both gave some ideas and filled in a couple gaps where we didn't have some work. And since then, we've identified a couple areas where, again, going with the blank check methodology, we could bring some things forward. So like distribution, it was originally scheduled for a month or two from now based on current work, but in the blank check world, they could start doing it now because they'd have unlimited people to be able to work on this stuff. These three things together, I use an example below. In reality, with the team size that we have and the people working on it, these would more likely be serial, but in a blank check world, we could do these all in parallel because we'd have an unlimited number of Yoricks, let's say, to work on database stuff to discover and mitigate like cross joins, remove foreign keys, etc. So this is the approach I've taken on this one, and it gets us around a November timeline. And feedback is welcome and encouraged. If anybody sees any gaps on things that we haven't put in here for work, please add them, and feel free to shuffle around dependencies or bring things forward and just comment on what you changed, so that I know what was changed. Any questions on this? And please don't look at this as hard and fast commitments on anything. This is really just brainstorming how we can bring the timeline in and raise our confidence.
I will review in detail. I think just visually, I think this is great as a Gantt chart. My immediate concern is if I see, for example, in August, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 things going on in parallel. Mm-hmm. That can create inefficiencies just with coordination, but that's something to be figured out when we get to that point.
Yeah.
But I think this is where these charts actually sometimes are nice, because they make this more apparent. So thanks for doing it.
Yeah, to your point, that's kind of like the second stage. Like, all right, if we all agree, like, again, in a blank check world, we could bring all these things forward and have all this work done in parallel. And then you start applying reality to it. That's when things start slipping off. Like, oh, we don't have 11 fully dedicated teams or whatever that number was that we have going in parallel. What makes the most sense to push back or apply teams to, et cetera. So I agree. There's a lot in parallel, and this doesn't reflect reality.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll review today or tomorrow the latest and leave a few comments.
All right, I'll stop sharing now. Clearly, from the stunned silence in Jose and Yorick, it makes perfect sense. All right, Jose, you get the next topic.
Okay, so I created the following epic here to, let me share my screen for a second. I created this topic to try to summarize the work that we need to do in infrastructure to generate an environment to measure the efficiency of our sharding strategies. We have some discussions with the team today earlier about if we want at the end of the day do a test just with a stream replication, or using a mechanism having step with logical to make the more smooth the failover and so on, and also to test or how much load are we adding in production, well, in an environment that simulates production and so on. And what I'm doing here is using the environment that we had from benchmarking, from where we used this environment. When we tested our migrations from Postgres 11 to 12, we were using this. It's an environment in hardware that simulates production, and also we have there some JMeter to simulate the traffic from production. So I think can give us a good understanding on what we will face when we will enable it. The only things I see here, first steps is like what extra boxes we need. One of the points here is like we will need a box with GitLab code that will have the sharding feature itself that we need to enable. Besides, there are more details that I'm discussing in the issue here. Like, please, everyone is more than welcome to participate. The point of the network, something we are being discussed here a bit more, because we have a VPC, but we need to be extremely careful with the ingress and egress traffic. Something I wanted to be sure 200% before we proceed. To do not have like any web hooks or any kind of communication with exterior generating trouble. There is more updates here. I need to read more. But yeah, this is what we are discussing here. Besides, I want to make clear, like, or make a run book or document what we are doing, how we are gathering the statistics. I'm proposing as well to use net data rather than Prometheus. I'm saying this why? Last time I have been for 2 or 3 months working in this benchmarking environment, and unfortunately, as a reason, they were not able to set up Prometheus properly because some problems in the environment or difficulties they found out. I found out the solution with Nick about net data that was pretty nice to gather basic metrics from the OS. I have some examples in the issue. Okay. The other steps here is like how to provision the environment itself. I want to document it. It's straightforward from Terraform and Chef, but still, I think it's good to have this clear. And how to reset it as well. In case every time that we do a test, we want to go back to the scratch to execute again a test with a different change in our logic or different steps, we have this documented. And basically, I listed as well the 2 tests that we are initially thinking about. Of course, can be more or more changes there. From what I spoke with Dylan and the team today earlier. For what I see as well, let me stop sharing for a second. There was a question from the work in the 580. Setup sharding amount. Yes, it's something similar with this epic from Shundu. The problem that I see here is like this. There's another epic inside of infrastructure that as well they attempted to do this from the scratch,
Sorry, you say, are you reading my question?
Yes.
Okay,
What I see
I
here is
can,
like, mhm.
yeah, I can explain. It's like, I think we created in our issue tracker, this sort of, we have to set up a testing environment to test it.
Yes,
And then there's also an epic for sort of more benchmark related tasks, right? As in, you know, things that they may want to evaluate. I was just wondering if we can at least close this one, the first issue here, which is the set up a sharding environment one, because that is clearly captured in the epic that you created.
Yes.
So I would suggest, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I would suggest I'll just leave a comment and say, Jose has created this epic in the infrastructure tracker. This is where all of this work is happening. We can close this just to keep the backlog tidy and we know where things are.
Awesome, thank you. There's another issue inside of infrastructure. I need to find a number to tell you that Brent created as well to create the POC environments for testing. And it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I think that can be closed as well, because we are done with the POC stuff, I think, essentially, right? It's like we're going to move forward with this. So I think we can
whatever you need to test. I need to we need to do me and SREs and infrastructure. We need still to provision one box there to be able to roll out this, have a look on the network, but I think we're pretty done on this. Because unfortunately the POC environment is not ready yet. They found more problems there because the problem here is like they did from the scratch and they tried to reorganize the more components and this got more complex, unfortunately.
Great, thanks. I will close these issues then, because then we have no duplication. We can say infrastructure is now tracking this over here, and that makes sense. Would you agree, Craig?
I was just going to say, should we keep them open and just say tracked on infrastructure issue over here? That's how I've seen it done before, but that's just so that we keep them visible on our board so we don't lose track of them. But I don't have a strong opinion. If you want to close them and say tracking over here, it's fine too.
I think at least this one here, I want to say the 471. I think we could close if you don't mind.
Which one is that?
I pasted now. We close.
You just linked it below.
It was.
Yeah,
that seems like a duplicate to the one that you just created.
Yeah, I think that can definitely be closed. Okay, then I like the idea from Craig, and I'll just leave a note in there saying this work we have this for tracking purposes, but it's going to happen over here so people know what's going on.
But like you're talking about which epic? Would you do this in both or in the?
No, sorry. Sorry, this is me. I'm not trying to make it more complicated. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
So you did create this one here.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, 1 second. This one here.
Yes.
We leave this is your new playground where you're going to do all of the work related to the benchmarking environments.
Mm-hmm.
We, a while ago, created this epic here, this issue here, setting up a sharding environment, which is essentially describing exactly what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, can we close this or not? And I think Craig suggested to maybe leave it open, but provide a link to your epic and say, this is only for tracking purposes. You know, the work is happening over here, so we don't lose track of it. And I'll do the same with this epic here, which is sort of testing on production-like data. This was our way of saying, hey, we need to do this. And we have a couple of other issues in here. And I'll leave that open as well, because there may be specific things. Yeah.
As you prefer, but if you see here, for example, you're mentioning ZFS. We are using
Yes.
GCS's disk snapshots. This is slightly different. In the previous epic, I would strongly recommend that we close the epic, the 471, if I'm not wrong, because
Yes.
like the tasks that are attempting to do that are already covered here. Look this. Yeah,
Okay, I'll close this.
Open.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my
And then the other epics, we can remove the conflicting wording and just say that all of the
Because I see that
Jose's
code
epic
is-
is a single source of truth.
Thank you. It's because if not, they don't want to leave other merge requests around, like fixing things. in
Yeah. This is why I'm highlighting it. I want to make sure we don't have like 15 things saying the same thing and nobody knows where we are at. Okay, so this is done. I'll remove all of that. I'll clean that up after the call, and then we'll be fine. But it's great to see this. I'm happy that you're starting to work on it.
Thank you.
That's it for agenda topics, unless anybody has anything else they want to cover today.
Sorry, I missed the first 10 minutes, but what was discussed about the blank check proposal? Anything, any highlights?
No, I just gave an overview to mostly York and Jose. Fabian had seen it before, and yeah. that was
Okay,
it.
but Jose, how do you think about that? I mean, do we have a good picture of the infrastructure's work there?
Yes, I created an epic where I designed like what we need to do to adapt our benchmark environment that nowadays has a good is equal to production, let's say in the database level. And we're using JMeter to generate the traffic, and we could test there our approaches for the sharding proposal. We will need the help from SRE in some points there. I think we have collaboration with them. So I think we are in good shape in that part.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, since people are here, the reason I was late is because we were working on this blocker, the production data blocker, which you created, Jose, that issue, infrastructure issue. So we're trying to answer the questions to Eric, and hopefully we get support to move the needle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. What is it? It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everybody.